Hello and welcome back. Today we'll be looking at the fourth part of the Etude in B-flat major number 18 for this year's all-region auditions. Etude number 18 is 38 measures total, and there's a lot of technique, as you know by now. Many arpeggios and scale note patterns. The range goes from the low C on the oboe to the altissimo F. It's really kind of a tour de force for the oboe. The fourth part of the Etude lasts from measures 24 to 30. Measures 24 through 30 occur after a breath and is a short passage with some unusual scale and arpeggio patterns. This section of the Etude is very difficult. There are a number of awkward leaps and semi-scale type passages. Let's look at it in detail and listen to it. Before actually practicing the Etude, let's review the B-flat scale, because that's used throughout this section. The B-flat scale normally will be played from E-flat to left F, probably not in this case many times because of the speed. G, A, B-flat, C, high D, which is both tongued in this Etude and slurred. Some of you may find that your D, when you slur, squawks. In that case, you'll want to lift the finger up for slurring. And then, of course, we have high E-flat at the peak of this section. Now, a quick review of the altissimo notes for this section. The tongued D, the standard fingering, is half hold 2-3, middle finger of the right hand, and the low C key. When slurring, sometimes this will speak and sometimes not, depending on the oboe. In fast passages, it's okay to slur to the high D with the left index finger raised. Frequently, for my oboe, I find that adding the ring finger of the right hand in the slurred high D compensates for the pitch, because when we lift this finger up, the pitch will be sharper. The right hand ring finger then compensates for that by flattening the note slightly. Then there's E-flat 6 as well, which is an awkward note, and the standard fingering for it is half hold 2-3, the low B natural key, and the second, third fingers of the right hand. But we have a very fast and awkward passage here going from C to E-flat. Few fingers to many fingers. You can see at a fast speed, it's very difficult to play that. So I suggest that you do E-flat 6 as an alternate fingering, which is used throughout countries like China, Korea, and Japan, especially in fast passages. And here is the alternate fingering for E-flat 6. Second and third finger of each hand. I used the alternate fingering in my demonstration earlier. And that's much easier to slur back down to the D and to tongue. Notice, C to E-flat then becomes literally flipping from first fingers to second and third fingers. Now let's listen to the technique played with that alternate fingering itself. You can see it slurs very, very easily, and even as a fast tongued passage, works very well. If we try it slowly, we hear kind of a noise in there. So at a fast speed, that's hidden. And you'll notice in the music, I have a star by it because I wanted to make sure we talked about the options for E-flat 6. There's one arpeggio in this section, and that's the B-flat major arpeggio right at the beginning. D, F, B-flat, high D. I used the forked F because of the speed, and I did, as I discussed earlier, use the B-flat to D with the index finger up. So you can try it, whatever works for you and your oboe and your reed and what your teacher is comfortable with, but frequently slurring to D depending on the oboe. Many cases, the half hole, going to the half hole works. Some reeds and players and oboes, it does not work, and it's okay in that instance to lift the left index finger. Before we get into the technique in detail, let's mention a good warm-up. Long tones, especially those in the B-flat scale, would be good. Playing the B-flat scale itself with a metronome, even at a slow tempo, to get you to think in pulse at all times. and then test your low register and high register notes for the reed you're going to be using for the practice session. One of the big issues with this etude is where to breathe, starting in measure 24. Now you'll notice there was a breath mark already written, and you should use that. Please refer to part 3 of my video on this etude for details. But after this, there's not really any place to breathe written in the music. It's not going to happen that you're going to play from measure 24 to the end in one breath. Very, very unlikely. So I suggest, as you can see in the music, putting a breath at the end of this section after those arpeggios, because the last measure heads toward the note F. Ba-da-da-bee-da-da-dee-da-da-bee-da-da-da. I have seen a couple of videos on the internet already where the performer breathes at the end of a measure. Please don't do that. It doesn't make sense with the music. It interrupts the flow. And you look at the last measure, dee-ah-dee-ah-dee-ah-dee-ah-dee-ah-dee-ah-dee-ah-da. That's all one musical idea. So if you must breathe in the middle, like me, then to put it at the end of that idea makes sense. And you can see I've marked it in the music with the parentheses saying it's a suggestion. And if you do choose to breathe there, a little bit of a retard so that the listener knows, hey, I'm doing this on purpose. I'm breathing on purpose at that spot. And now let's take a look at some of the technical challenges. Let's look at measures 27 through 28. Very, very difficult. This is the spot with all the pairs slurring. So the sequence first would be to take the first note of each pair and play it. When you get used to that weird skip in the middle, you'll notice it goes up the scale, and then after the A, the B flat is skipped. Ferling kind of had an oopsie moment. I've run out of music. I've got to cut something. Then add one slurred note and continue. Etc. I happen to use forked F in this passage because of the speed involved. Normally in medium or slow tempos or legato playing, very legato, I will use left F. But it's awkward to change back and forth from left to right here. I'm worried about the oboe moving around, so I'm using forked F to keep what we say the fingers in line. Now let's look at another awkward passage, measure 29, the end of this section. You'll notice that I put a forked mark at the first F because we have the arpeggio. Then we have that awkward octave leap in the middle of the beat, B flat G, E natural, and I use left F there because going from E to natural to F makes it very obvious that the forked F is out of tune and the forked F occurs on another strong beat again. So for me, this is a better choice. Of course, you can use forked F as well. It would work like this. But for me, I'm trying because I find that going from E natural to left F is okay for my personal technique and its abilities. Talk to your teacher and see what you together are comfortable with. There are no dynamic markings throughout this section, so it would be wise to consider some phrase shaping. I put some suggestions in here to crescendo through the first part of it, then diminuendo again, and then the section with the slurs and pairs has a natural crescendo built into it. Do that. And then you'll peak. The peak of that crescendo will be at the end of this section, the end of measure 28 and the beginning of measure 29. Not going to lie, the articulation is kind of goofy through this section, and you'll need to practice very slowly from the beginning of your practice regimen to ensure that you're using the correct articulations. Don't make too much out of the staccato and accent. It's going to sound accented to the listener anyway because it occurs on the primary beat of the measure, 1, 4. So don't worry too much about the accent. And again, think light for staccato instead of short. In the next measure, when you have the pairs, first practice a legato. Only add the accent when you can play the entire measure cleanly. And then it's just a little bit of a breath behind it huh, 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 or s, 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 s. It's just a little bit of impulse. Consider tone quality as your first asset. Start by playing long tones and then translating them into the technical demands. You'll notice at every stage I'm thinking about air and keep the face still. Add articulations later. Start with long tones, slurring everything, adding articulations gradually. Document your progress. You should have a journal by now. Write down what you practice every day, what speeds you used, how you felt about your playing, even about which reeds you used. You can go back then and look at the progress with a lot of satisfaction that you have worked hard toward the goal of the all-region audition. This is the end of part 4 for Etude number 18. If I can be of service to you, please contact me at the email or phone number given. Good luck.